Genocide, the deliberate extermination of a race or people.
Sudan, Congo,
Rwanda,
Bosnia,
Kyrgyzstan, Guatemala, East Timor,
Cambodia,
Burundi,
Bangladesh, Indonesia.
As an orphan, I was there in Theresienstadt, in the horrors of this death camp. Of 15,000 Jewish children, less than 100 survived.
I was in the Lodz ghetto for 4 years, and then Auschwitz-Birkenau, where my friends and family were killed just for being born Jewish.
We are thrown out of our home and then our town to make it Judenrein. We lost everything when I was just 10 years old, imagine. Then in the ghetto they came to take all the children away. My mother hid me and my sister Stenia under her coat, but they took her away. She was only 8 years old, and she was my best friend, and I never saw her again. I feel very strongly that people in Britain today should learn good and decent values.
Tolerance of others.
Freedom of speech, opinion and expression.
equality before the law,
democracy,
Freedom of thought, consciousness and religion.
a right to education,
to learn from the past.
These principles should never be taken for granted. The world is not how I thought it would be after the war. You know, with the race crimes, gang crimes, knife crimes, the bullying and prejudice and intolerance.
In the neighbourhood there is quite a lot of racism going on, because I think we have quite a lot of gangs, and there's Asian gangs, black gangs, white gangs.
Everyone has a knife, and if you ain't got the knife, you're the odd one out. So you're bound to lose a fight. You know what I mean? So you need sighting. You need it.
They have friends who are members of gangs. They have friends who carry weapons. They have to choose to not live that life, and that's a huge challenge for them.
We work with them through history, through the Holocaust Education Trust, to realise that this doesn't have to happen.
And that's why HET has developed a programme for schools in areas of rising racial tension. It's called Think Equal.
This has been a pilot project until now. It's developed into a crucial part of the Holocaust Educational Trust's programme across the country.
We piloted this project in inner city schools and realised that we were making a tangible difference. So now we're launching Think Equal to make it available to all schools around the country. What we're recognising is in areas where there's a high number of different community groups, racial tension, and even target areas of the far right, we can go in and explore issues of citizenship and identity and prejudice and make sure that young people are becoming aware of these issues for themselves and the wider community.
By education and example, they will be able to make a difference to Britain and to the world. So when racists and bigots speak at the Oxford Union, there will be protests saying, "Never again," and they will mean it. And they won't stand by when they see genocide like Darfur still happening. In Britain this past year, over 250,000 people voted for the far right.
They won a seat in the London Assembly, the same London that took me in after the war. Something somewhere has gone wrong, and I don't want it to get worse.
That is why I wholeheartedly support the Holocaust Educational Trust, now celebrating its 20th year.
It was founded by Lord Jenner and the late Lord Merlin Rees in 1988. Since then, it has achieved so much. It's been instrumental in establishing Holocaust Memorial Day.
They have helped put the Holocaust on the curriculum in every school in the country. They have trained thousands of teachers and provided them with these very impressive education packs.
It has helped to make the Holocaust unforgettable by appearing on television, the radio, and it has developed a great respect from parliamentarians and universities, colleges and communities.
Well, as an MP, you get bombarded with letters and emails and early day motions to sign and all sorts of campaigns. But I think one thing the Holocaust Education Trust does very well is focus MPs' attention onto what happened in Europe.
And the Holocaust Educational Trust outreach program to prisons has been warmly welcomed by both the prison service and the criminals serving time.
Coming into prison is important because there's people in here that haven't had the opportunity to hear of things like this.
When the Holocaust Educational Trust arranges for us, the survivors, to visit schools, the response from the children is truly remarkable. They become witnesses to our history, making it part of their history.
They've just made a fantastic DVD with the USC Shoah Foundation Institute. It allows children to interact with recordings of survivors and liberators. It's very exciting and the children's questions are answered. It's called Recollections, Eyewitnesses Remember the Holocaust.
Reading in a book would just be a bit boring. With the resources, it makes it more interesting and it helps you learn and understand much better.
Students find Recollections to be interesting because it's real. All right, the DVD works with real people who were there, so they reacted really well to it. It was ideal.
The response to this teaching aid has been wonderful. It will live on long after we've gone, so it will be very useful for future generations. And it's even won a prestigious BAFTA award, which everyone is delighted about.
The reason we put this resource together is because one day there won't be survivors of the Holocaust to tell their story in schools and to people and tell them about their past and why they were persecuted.
Thanks to the Holocaust Educational Trust, the government is paying in part for this wonderful organisation to take 2 pupils from every school in the country to visit Auschwitz. I think that's marvellous.
But it's not just the children who visit. Politicians, civil servants, journalists, teachers and people from all different faiths go too. But there is a problem. Since their Auschwitz program now reaches so many schools, there is more demand for all their other projects, and the government does not fund these.
We have a huge demand for our educational resources. Not just the actual materials that we produce for classroom teachers to use, but also our physical presence in schools, delivering teacher training and working with students. The most frustrating thing for us is that we don't have the resources to meet those demands.
So we need to train the teachers nationwide, we need to provide the resources for them to deliver in the lessons, and we need to provide the support to them as and when they need it.
Personally, I find that upsetting. They shouldn't be struggling to encourage Holocaust education. They need to train more teachers and more educators. We won't be lecturing to school much longer, we know that. Our message: to learn from the past, to make a better tomorrow, and to do this with urgency.
It's not too late. Use knowledge and the truth will prevail.
We pass this responsibility on to you, because you will live as we have lived for our children.
We lived the horrors of prejudice and intolerance, so we ask you, we beg you, and the Holocaust Educational Trust, to teach,
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 and teach them well.